Welcome to the garden. This bed is just covered with dill and parsley and a few volunteers like lettuce and leeks. I'm really pleased that we got some volunteer lettuce. These are all volunteers here. And I can see red lettuce. I'm so happy with this because I didn't get to save any red lettuce seeds. So these volunteers I'm going to weed around so that they're the only plant in the vicinity. I really don't want any competition, and we've got them all over the place. Not so many in this pot here. I don't think we got enough to produce seed, but we do have some here. So that was a really, really nice surprise. We even have some in containers like this. I'm just going to let those grow all on their own. So I'm going to actually weed pretty heavily all these lettuce. And these are just different types of lettuce. They're not actual weeds, but I really want those red ones to grow. And when they're growing together like this, really close, we can actually probably separate them. So you want to wait till after a rain or give it a really good drink to soften that soil, and then you can grab it by the leaf. You don't want to grab it by the stem, and then dig down and try and get as much of that root as possible. So these ones are a little too close together, but I do want to try and save both. So I'm going to gently try and separate them. You don't want to grab them by the stem or the root, but we want to try and get as much of that root as we can. So grab them by the leaf, and we got a good amount of root there. And I don't think we've disturbed our other little sproutling very much at all. I'm spreading these out to different parts of the garden because that container really is full. We've got all sorts of lettuce in there already. So I want to spread some out to other parts. We can actually bury a little bit of that stem as long as it's white, just so that the leaves poke out. And just like that, it shouldn't have too much disturbance there. And then we'll just water these in. I found this nice cluster, and these were all in a location where they needed to move. We've got some really nice sized pieces here. There's at least 3 that look really good. We can take some water and just saturate them like this. If we just very gently let that soil kind of fall apart, we should be able to grab them by the leaf, just so that we don't damage that stem or those roots, and just slowly pull them out without really any damage. Don't have to pull too hard at all, and you get all the root. And we grab them by the leaf, so we're not going to be damaging virtually any of the plant. Even if you do kind of squish a leaf or pull a piece off, the plant should still be okay. But if we damage that root or that stem, it would be done. So we planted out a nice little pot here, mostly green lettuces and one little red one. So we've got a little bit of weeding to do here, and then of course batches like this that are just super thick, all of these can just go because we've got a really strong plant here that's pretty close to our red one. So that's about the spacing I want to shoot for at minimum. So even like this little guy, I'd prefer him over a larger version of just the other lettuce. These were all extra seeds, so I really don't mind. I really want the variety of the red. So we're just going to weed pretty heavily around here, and we'll have plenty more lettuce. So we've got a nice spacing around our red lettuce, and we want to weed a little bit around the edges. It dries out so quickly around these edges that pretty soon those plants are just going to die anyways. Especially the really small ones, we can just pull them. So these two might be a little close together, but I think we can get away with that. We might even be able to do these two. We'll just pull this one But that's a nice one, so I think I might try and transplant that one. But around this little red lettuce, I think we do have a little too many here, so I'm just going to start pulling some. We'll just weed it down to one and see how that goes. So in between these two, we can maybe squeeze in that one. And then probably get rid of that. Could probably get rid of these two and this one. So it can be a little drastic, but as soon as these start to fill in, you'll see exactly why we've done this. They get really big. They'll probably each take up a space about this large, so having them overlap is a bad idea. They'll just become small and a little bit too confined. Lots of work to do, but it's really important to thin these out. If you don't do that, you're actually going to get a smaller harvest. It's a little counterintuitive, but it does end up working well. So I think this is a great start. We can just thin these out as we go until we're down to 1 every 6 inches or up to a foot in spacing. So this is the final spacing. I've thinned them out to about 6 inches apart. Maybe a little bit less in some areas, but we can always thin them out further later on. And I like to do that because we can actually harvest our lettuces. Maybe one of these could probably go, but if we let it get a few inches tall first, we can actually harvest it for a little sandwich or something. So I'm going to do this same spacing on basically all my containers. So we'll tackle this one next, and we'll even do some of these ones. And these are actually all volunteer lettuce. So again, I'm going to favor the red ones because I really like those. But then something like this one, we could probably choose the one furthest away and then just weed these ones out. And then transplanting anything that we want to save. So I hope you give this a go in your garden. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.